सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्।
Hello everybody. So we have the second part of Ma with us. She's been she gave us some gems yesterday, and today, because I'm so greedy, especially when I'm with Ma, so I wanted to ask her more questions. And so Ma has been kind enough to come on Sunday also with us today. So Ma, welcome again.
Thank you so much.
And I love you a lot.
Yes, I love you too, and I love all your audience. All of them are close to my heart. Thank you.
Yes, Ma. Of course, you, like yesterday, you spoke about being a teacher and how much you love being a teacher. And I know your students love to just be with you. Ma, एक चीज ना मैंने हमेशा देखी है कि people talk a lot about suffering. They give a lot of importance to suffering. जैसे कि उनका जो दिन है ना उसमें एक बार तो वो जरूर कहेंगे आई एम सफरिंग, दिस इज नॉट राइट, दैट्स नॉट राइट. Do you think we should give a lot of importance to suffering? Because Buddha said that suffering is a path to salvation. और कई लोग जैसे हठ योगीज है या बहुत सारे लोग जो है वो अपने आप को बड़ा दर्द देते हैं, स्टैंडिंग ऑन वन फुट. एंड आपको तो बहुत सारी कहानियां पता होगी इससे लगती हुई. तो माँ कुछ बताइए सफरिंग के बारे में, द पावर ऑफ सफरिंग.
Yeah, so it's a very beautiful question. Thank you. These questions help me also to come out with pearls of wisdom that probably I also need to listen to, and we all need them. So suffering is basically experiencing something. It's an experience. It's like any other experience. I am happy, or I am sad, or I am excited, or it's overwhelming. These are all experiences. Suffering is also an experience. Incidentally, it is an experience that stretches and gets attached to the ego. It's an experience that stretches and gets attached to the ego like a python. Like a python that kind of engulfs the individual completely and eats it up. Yeah. So it is very much 100% a part of our ego, because it has a kind of not giving up attitude. The suffering doesn't want to give itself up. You don't want to give up that suffering. When you don't want to give up that suffering That means it has got attached to a very important aspect of our personality, and often it is the ego. So when it gets attached to the ego, then it gets strengthened with the ego, and it receives, it's like a parasite, it receives its strength from the ego, which is an integral part of our individuality, ego. So ego is not always I am, and ahankar jisko hum bolte. Ego is always also the other side of it, which is like oh, the poor me, or the suffering me, or how much more can I tolerate, this is also ego. And few people understand this, that this has got attached to the ego. Few people understand that इसने मुझे सारा लपेट लिया है अपने अंदर, बहुत कम लोग समझते हैं। योगीज जो होते हैं वो इस बात को समझते हैं। आपने हठ योग का जिक्र किया, आपने हठ योग की बात की, by self-inflicted pain, and they use the pain as a carrier to growth. Hठ yogis understand this, that suffering can become instrumental in going inward. Suffering can be caused, yes, वो रीढ़ की हड्डी पे लपटा होता है, वो रीढ़ की हड्डी को तोड़ सकता है, ईगो की हड्डी को तोड़ सकता है वो. So they utilize the suffering to go inward, and they utilize the suffering to shed off that which is very difficult to shed off. For instance, let's say a woman in love, a woman in love who is suffering because the other is not giving, let's say, is not giving in the relationship or whatever. So if she utilizes the suffering, she can attain God. Just like Meera, just like Meera had a fancy suffering of, there was no Krishna in her physical life, right? Correct. But she was in love with a thought, and that thought gave her the pain and the suffering of separation, me separated from the जो हम जिसको हम विरह बोलते हैं, उससे separation का उसने वो दुख पाल लिया, and that took her into God attainment and enlightenment. But that can happen only when there have been, when your senses and your antakaran is clean. It cannot happen otherwise. Like a python, it is either a python or it is something that will break your ego and take you to godhood. So it's a very dangerous thing. If you are suffering, if a person holds on to suffering because it gives attention, it takes attention, and it gives a lot of sympathy and healing and friends and all of this, and I mean, who else other than the person himself has to reflect on it? You as a counselor or me as a counselor cannot tell them this, because that inflicts pain to them. That inflicts pain to them. To me to say that, listen, it has got attached to your ego and you need to recognize it, also inflicts pain. He or she comes to a counselor or to a healer expecting her to sympathize with her or to understand her, her worry. So the person herself or himself has to recognize this, that this is like a python, completely taken me, in its arrest. And I have to either break it or I have to tame it and take it to my attainment.
Correct. Yes, ma. So, when you were talking, मुझे एक ध्यान आया कि single pointed vision होना चाहिए. जैसे आपने एग्जाम्पल दिया ऑफ मीरा, शी हैड अ सिंगल पॉइंटेड विजन, है ना? आसपास की कोई चीज है उनको दिखाई नहीं दी, उनको सिर्फ कृष्ण दिखाई दिया, बस दैट्स इट. एंड दैट सफरिंग, जहां पे मैं और सफरिंग, and the person,
yes,
like Krishna, and that's the only flow that is happening. Well, that is mind-blowing, right?
Absolutely mind-blowing. She took her suffering as a sutra between she and Krishna, as a sutra,
Yes, yes.
So yes. There, it can win over the kingdom of God. But Here is the person in day-to-day parlance, when we see in the world, as we see people, a lot of suffering, you and me encounter a lot of these people who are suffering. They are experiencing suffering and elaborating it, verbalizing it,
Yes,
and utilizing it to, strengthen the ego, which is in the grip of the
correct.
suffering. Yeah. And so
So,
salvation cannot happen. It cannot happen.
yes, ma'am. So it brings me to the next question that, when we are suffering, ma, you feel as if that suffering and you cannot separate it. So, but suffering by itself is actually kind of illusionary. Sometimes we suffer for things which are not there or they are never going to be there. So,
Yes.
just throw some light on this very kind of illusionary nature of suffering also.
Yeah. So the whole process of experience, like I said, suffering is an experience. Okay.
Hmm.
So the whole process of experience is primarily backed by the theory of perception.
Hmm.
By the theory of perception, what you perceive. Suppose somebody elderly is standing in front of me, someone very close to me, and says something very nasty to me. Okay, I suffer. I suffer with those words.
Hmm.
Now, point number one, have I heard him right? All right.
Hmm.
Have I
Correct.
understood what he means by what he said, what he said?
Hmm.
Point number three, how deep have those words gone inside? Was it necessary?
Hmm.
Point number four, what have I interpreted out of those words?
Hmm.
You know, let's
Yes.
say somebody very dear to me says, I'm going to kick you out of here. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, if I make a story out of this dialogue, that he wants me out of his life, he wants me out of the family, he wants me out of the house, he's planning something against me, so I can make it as big as I want.
Hmm.
I can
Correct.
magnify and amplify it as big as I want. The fact is that the root cause of suffering, whatever suffering people undergo in their life, is very little, is very small. The actual size of the event is very small, and it is amplified to a million times by our mind. We amplify it with various thoughts, connections, and I mean, we उसका अचार भी डालते हैं और past life की stories निकाल करके future life की stories.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. Ma, they tend to associate things
associate
which are not
things.
not present.
No, it is
And that is
amplified and
why suffering could be kind of illusionary at
yeah.
times.
So when the easiest way to end suffering in the moment when it inflicts you, in
True.
the moment when it inflicts you, the easiest way to end the suffering is to diffuse the whole thought process by saying, I've not heard it right, I've not understood it right, and I have not perceived it right. Finish.
Right.
Yeah.
An easy way to end suffering.
Yeah, you just diffuse that thought. That's it.
Absolutely. Ma'am, Ma, how does one know that my suffering is ended?
When it doesn't pain you anymore,
Ah,
I mean, even the death of somebody or separation from somebody or, loss of something or, complete ripping off of something. When it doesn't pain you anymore and when a person can narrate that incident, as a matter of fact, किसी story book से वो सुना रहा है ऐसे. As long as people cry on an event, as long as people feel the pain and an upsurge of emotions in their heart, suffering has not ended. When you can feel that I can narrate anything of my life just as a matter of fact without having tears in my eyes or feeling anything rising up here or down here in the stomach, until that time, I mean, आप खुद ही diagnose कर सकते हैं उसको कि जब तक वो दर्द उठता है तब तक suffering जिंदा है. जब वो दर्द नहीं उठता है, matter of fact ऐसा हुआ ऐसा हुआ ऐसा हुआ है ना, तब तो वो suffering खत्म हो चुकी है.
कई लोग कहेंगे कि you are not being sensitive.
Well, that's their problem.
Ah, that's true. That's true.
That's their problem.
Absolutely. सबसे बड़ी सफरिंग, मैं इतने सारे लोगों को मिलती हूँ, सबसे बड़ी सफरिंग है when either they don't get the love that they want or somebody that they loved goes away and then they have a feeling of lack of love.
Yes.
माँ इसके बारे में कुछ बताइए, बिकॉज ये ना बहुत सारे लोग इससे मतलब परेशान हैं कि
हाँ.
मुझे प्यार नहीं मिला, मुझे जो प्यार चाहिए था वो मुझे नहीं मिला, वेयर इज माय सोलमेट, आई एम इन सर्च ऑफ माय सोलमेट। माँ ये जो फिनोमिना है ना सोलमेट का, and not getting the soulmate and suffering because of that, or getting married but not thinking that that spouse is your soulmate, तो ये जो एक कॉम्प्लिकेटेड चीज आजकल दुनिया में है, इसके बारे में कुछ बताइए।
देखिए, the fact is that the only soulmate you have is your soul. और तो कोई soulmate है नहीं। आपका soulmate ही आपका soulmate है। आपका soul ही आपका other है। You know, the other side of me that makes me feel complete is your soul, nobody else. Yeah, one may put that as an epitome of God, as a you know, one can idolize that as a God. That's okay, but other than the soul, there is no other mate. That is for sure. All right. Now, the point here is, yes, lack of love does become a very important and a very painful suffering for a lot of people. Now, what is the role of this lack of, what is the role of love? Let's understand. From our inception, from our childhood, when we enter into this world, you know, the touch of the mother, the touch of the father, the touch of all your siblings and friends, you know, we have been conditioned to experience love from outside. We have conditions. Suppose you were born in a forest and you were alone as a child, you would have loved to, you would have grown and found your soulmate within, you know. But we are not born alone. We are born in a cluster, always in a, you know, family and everything. So receiving love from them is understood as the only source of love. Whereas we have not given ourselves the freedom, nor has anybody taught us from childhood to find love within, or to find love in nature, or to find love in sources that we don't speak about normally. We have not been taught. There are sources of love, you know, in this world. We have not been taught. So the assumption that the love has to come from this one, that assumption is wrong, and this is first thing that is the source of suffering. It is not important that love has to come from people, first of all, you know. And secondly, what does this love do? Suppose it is coming from a mother or from a father. What does this love do? Whenever unconditional, genuine love is received by a person, this unconditional, genuine love goes into you. It goes into you and it takes you in touch with your soul. It travels. The love travels. It is the sense of your soul. It travels and it touches your soul. हमको बोलते हैं ना, इतना प्यार उसने किया कि मेरी रूह कांप गई. ऐसे तो it actually travels and touches your soul, and your soul exudes a lot of love. That fountain of love that you experience in your soul, when you experience that fountain of love in your soul, you think that this love has come from that person. Actually, it is not come from that person. He has triggered it.
Yes.
जैसे एक न्यूली बॉर्न हम अपने बच्चे को ही उठाते हैं, तो अंदर से ऐसा प्यार निकलता है उस बच्चे के लिए. तो बच्चा एक इंस्ट्रूमेंट बनता है. प्यार तो आपका अपना है.
True.
प्यार तो आपके दिल में आपके दिल से निकल रहा है और आप एक्सपीरियंस कर रहे हैं. प्यार वहां से नहीं आ रहा है. ये एक जरिया बन गया है जिससे आपने अपने प्यार को महसूस किया. Can everybody understand this, that love is residing in your heart only? The other person becomes instrumental in triggering it. उसी तरह जब हम प्यार में पड़ जाते हैं किसी के, है ना, when you fall in love with someone, so उसकी शक्ल देखते ही अंदर कुछ होने लगता है ना. वो कुछ मीठे शब्द बोलता है तो अंदर कुछ होने लगता है. So ये जो अंदर कुछ होने लगता है उसने तो नहीं डाला,
Correct.
अंदर
Correct.
था,
हाँ.
ये अंदर था. So the acknowledgement that love is residing in my heart is common sense and is the most intelligent thing to understand. Love is there residing in my heart. Now you want some instrument now to experience this love,
Correct.
and you're stuck that this husband only should give you that love, or you're stuck that this mother only should trigger this love. This love, you have to find out what can trigger this love.
True.
It's a journey of exploration. You have to find out what can trigger this love, and you will find that the love is always there in your heart like a fountain. वो रहे ना रहे, मेरा प्यार तो मेरे अंदर ही है.
Correct. So where is the question of suffering then?
Where is the question? The suffering ends. Suffering
Correct.
and separation, suffering in separation, and suffering in lack of love is a myth. Because you are suffering in your own ignorance and unawareness that love is there. वो है और आप उसको deny कर रहे हैं.
God could have given us a dish with all the stuff that we liked. Why did He put that bitter element inside? What is the purpose of putting bitterness?
He is a perfect and a very chalu bawarchi. Very perfect, very chalu bawarchi. This game should go on. अगर तो बढ़िया सा खाना बनेगा बगैर बिटर के तो खा पी के सो जाएंगे. लोटस ईटर्स बन जाएंगे. लोटस ईटर्स खानी है ना, ऐसे बन जाएंगे. अटलांटिस का क्या हुआ था? सब कुछ अच्छा 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 था, डूब जाता है ना. So polarities have to be there, and suffering is one of the dark polarities. You know, one of the dark. There is violence, there is abuse, there is suffering is comes in that category of the dark. So the bright and the dark. When there is dark only, there will be pursuit of the light. We won't understand what is light if there was no dark. You know, we won't understand that. How will you understand love if there was no love? No love अगर नहीं होता ना तो हम love को भी नहीं समझते, है ना. जब हम no love को experience करते हैं तब हमको love मीठा लगता है ना. और इसीलिए polarities का essential है होना. दूसरा, the game has to go on. Maya has to go on. The game has to go on. So enlightenment is kept away, and enlightenment is kept away, and there is always a wheel, and everybody is given challenges to keep the life long occupied. Everybody is given challenges to keep your whole life occupied. ये आपके ऊपर डिपेंड करता है कि आप उसको सिर के ऊपर लेके जीवन बिताते हो या अपनी कसौटी में बांध लिया अपने और अपना चलते बने. आपकी जो सफरिंग है, आपकी जो शॉर्ट कमिंग है, आपके जीवन में जो कुछ नहीं है, उसको आप सिर पे रख करके ढोगे जीवन भर, या आपने उतार लिया उसको और अपने दुपट्टे में बांध के कमर पे कस लिया और चल दिया अपना काम करके. ये एटीट्यूड की जो फ्रीडम है ये आपके पास है ना. So he becomes a Mritunjaya, and he becomes a Jitendra, who is able to remove the suffering and tie it to his waist and get going in this world.
So इसका मतलब actually माँ, there is nothing like suffering.
No, there isn't. There isn't. There isn't. It's just an experience जिसको हम ओढ़ लेते हैं अपने. ये ओढ़ा हुआ है, ये इसका अस्तित्व है ही नहीं. It's a myth. It's
Wow.
Yes.
That's fantastic, Ma. Suffering is a myth.
It's a myth. There are events.
There are events.
There are
yes.
events. There is
There are
death.
events.
There is death. There are events. But the events can be viewed, and you know, like the clock doesn't stop for anything. The clock doesn't stop. The moment doesn't stop. The universe doesn't stop. Planets don't stop orbiting even for a second. So
True.
everything has to just go on. And not stopping for an event and not choosing to suffer does not mean you're hard-hearted.
Yes, yes.
You
yes.
can love, you can sympathize and move on.
So आपको सुनने के बाद मुझे मेरे मन में एक आ रहा है like a clock. You know, time keeps moving.
Yes.
If you take what has happened in the past and take it and keep it now in the present and continue taking it forward in the future, then you may have a chance to suffer. But what has happened in the past, you leave it behind and now enjoy the present
Yeah.
and then move on to enjoy the future, then there is no suffering.
And but I mean, this kind of a living does not say that you have become hard-hearted or stone-hearted. I mean, there's something that in the whole day we have prayers. We have a time to pray. You can
Yes.
pray in that time. You can pray for everything, everybody, and whatever you have lost or whoever has lost because of you. You can pray for everyone, in that time. But the whole day has to be, offered to the divine. आपके कर्म इंद्रियां, आपके ज्ञान इंद्रियां, आपके present moment में अगर नहीं है तो ये अधर्म है.
So staying in the present,
Yes, yes, yes.
like they say that the kind of power lies in the present.
Yes, it is. It is. And
So
dharma lies
staying in the present, माँ कुछ बताइए how to stay in the present.
dharma lies in the present.
Yes, yes.
Dharma is in the present. The moment your mind is involved in anything in the future or anything in the past, that means you're not fulfilling your dharma 100%. So that is adharma. And the best way to live in the moment is to understand that we are not doing anything. You to just do, okay, there's a mic here, I have to speak now, that's all. But you understand that the whole mechanics of the electricity being there and the network being there and everything going on smoothly is not something I'm doing. I'm not doing it. I'm only speaking. Correct?
Yes.
और वो भी जब तक सोल अलाउ करता तब तक स्पीक करते हैं आप. जब सोल नहीं अलाउ करेगा तो स्पीक भी नहीं कर पाएंगे.
गायब हो जाएंगे.
Yeah. So to be in the moment is to make this equipment available, for the Lord to use.
And Ma, it reminds me of that beautiful talk that you gave at my place, being available.
Yes. That was
I just loved that. Can you speak a little bit about being available? इसमें कितना power है? Because the way you spoke that day about being available, and you gave the example also, आपका personal एक example दिया था, आपने इतना beautiful example था, and the message went straight. It was such a simple thing that you spoke, that how you can be available in the moment, in the present, connected to yourself and connected to the action that needs to be done.
Yeah.
कुछ बताइए माँ about being available.
Yeah, at that time I had gone visiting my mother, and my mother is a big taskmaster for me. So if I am there with her in those few hours, I don't think what I have to do. I just make myself available. So she tells me, you go get that towel, and I'll go and get that towel. And she said, इसको हटा दे, इसको हटा दिया, वो कर दे, वो कर दिया, उसको लेके आ जा, चूल्हा को बंद कर दो. I'm running. I'm just attending to her orders, and I stop the interference of my head.
Yes.
That what am I supposed to do? And if I utilize my head and sit there with any kind of an agenda or plan, the instructions that are coming from her will be irritating, and they will disturb me, and they will cause me suffering. But if I make myself available in that moment and just run, just blindly follow what she's telling you to do. She'll ask me to pick something, I pick it up. She asks me to drop something, I'll drop it, and I just sit there. And then I'm there in the moment 100%. It gives me no suffering. It gives me, in fact, a joy of watching myself being pushed in a button by someone. It gives me,
No, and Ma, you're so right, because when you are available and present in the moment, your ego, okay, aham जो है हमारा, मैं कुछ हूँ, वो अपने आप गायब हो जाता है, and then suffering automatically ends.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
So I think the phrase being available, that should be created into a mantra.
It's a fantastic mantra.
Fantastic mantra to end all suffering. Friends, be available.
Be available. And when you put yourself in a position, in a relationship, in a position, in an office role, or in a garden walk, you're going for a walk. When you're walking, you be available for walking. You shouldn't be thinking about what that man said in the morning, or what you'll go home and fix that up, or you be available in the walking. Just walk. when you are gone for a walk. Similarly, when you are in the office, don't think about home. And when you are at home, don't think about office. Just be where
Absolutely.
you are. Just be where you are. So a lot
Correct.
of people, I see a lot of youngsters do this when when they are going to sleep at night. They're thinking the whole day of what they're going to do tomorrow, and they work and work and work till midnight. You see, so it gives them a sense of having worked a lot, and
Yes.
then they're not able to get up the next day morning, and they are lethargic the whole day. They're not available where they were supposed to be available. So where you are at the moment, you're in bed, right? Sleep. That's all.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. Like हमने अभी इतनी सारी बातें की. I'm completely available to what you are what you are speaking. I'm holding every word that is of value, and I think that's so wonderful. Really, very nice, Mark. There are a lot of people, of course, listening to you, and they all love you so much. कुछ बताइए about ध्यान. um, how to stop, like, because we're talking about suffering. So there is also a way in which you can meditatively live your life so that suffering does not come close to you. So कुछ बताइए ध्यान के बारे में.
So, the whole exercise of dhyan, the whole routine or the abhyas, what you call, the whole आपके साधना का बहुत अहम हिस्सा है ये. Very important part of your sadhana is at least 20 minutes to 30 minutes of closing your eyes and sit down in dhyan. Now, for very common people, I say that you don't when you read a lot of elaborative books about meditation, and you read yogis are levitating and they are going into another dimension and all that. You unknowingly you have built up kind of expectation in your own mind about what the dhyan has to, how the dhyan has to reward you. These are the experiences that you are already expecting in your journey of dhyan, which is absolutely rubbish. you know it has to be erased from the mind completely. Number one, whatever you read in books or people have written about experiences are their experiences. They may be 100% true to them, but they are not true to you. And so what somebody says that how it is to burn in the fire is not necessarily going to be your experience, right? So you erase all the expectations out of meditation. This is the first thing that will take you into meditation. Erase all the expectations out of meditation. I don't know what is meditation, and I'm going to sit every day until the day I know what is meditation. This should be the approach, first of all. Then, training the body. You must train the body to sit without movement for 20 minutes, half an hour. If you're able to do that for a couple of days, for about a month, you will gain control over just sitting in a posture without movement. That is your first, milestone of success. So in the first day or in the first couple of days, if you start experiencing that, saying that I saw some colors and I saw some this and that, but I'm not getting meditation, it's wrong to ask, it's wrong to narrate. Because in the first month, you'll only probably train yourself to sit,
Yes.
and you'll sit without creating any movement. Now, what happens is in this course of training yourself to sit calmly, you're training your inside to not oscillate. You are एकाग्रता बोलते हैं इसको. हम आपकी जो जितनी प्राण शक्ति है, प्राण शक्ति में एकाग्रता की भावना आ जाती है कि भाई ये 20 मिनट रोज बैठने वाली है. अब प्राण जो है शांत हो जाते हैं उस समय के लिए, क्योंकि आपने रोज अभ्यास किया, आपने वो प्रोग्राम, एक तरह का प्रोग्राम हो गया ये. You fell into this. I'm going to sit down for 20 minutes. I'm not going to move. Okay. Now this is my only target, that I'm not going to move for 20 minutes. ये आपका पहला टारगेट है. तो प्राण आपके ये मैसेज को समझते हैं और वो एकाग्रता की एक गति शुरू हो जाती है, एकाग्रता लगनी शुरू हो जाती है. So in this course, slowly, month after month, your only effort is to not move. That's all. And ekagrata is something that will happen. You don't have to do. You cannot accumulate your pranic energy together and make it one. You cannot go into samadhi. The you has to just stop. The you word, that means मुझे कुछ करना है. ये जो कर्तापन है, इस कर्तापन को ही रोकना है. ये जब रुक जाता है और ये जब बिल्कुल लूला बन के बैठ जाता है, तब अंदर से मेडिटेशन का अपने आप वो शुरू हो जाता है. बिकॉज you know, when oscillation of the prana stops, the soul reveals itself. The soul does not reveal itself as long as the moving energy is there. When the moving energy looks back into a no movement, then the soul reveals itself. And you go into a state of meditation. So it's not something that can be done. It's not, it is not karma satya. It is kripa satya. ये कृपा से होता है. आपने क्या करना है? आपने केवल 20 मिनट बैठने की आदत डालनी है. That's all. You just have to train yourself to not move and sit down for 20 minutes. स्टैचू बन के, हम स्टैचू गेम खेलते हैं ना छोटेपन में, स्टैचू का गेम खेलना है. 20 मिनट अब मैंने हिलना नहीं. That's all.
Correct. Right. So most important Ma is discipline, right?
Most
किसी
important.
भी चीज
And
को हासिल करने के लिए डिसिप्लिन बहुत जरूरी है.
Very important. आपने जो क्वेश्चन पूछा उसका अधूरा रह गया आंसर कि सफरिंग कैसे एंड होता है ध्यान से. ये आपका प्रश्न था. So when you practice regularly this non-oscillating awareness, you know, and when the soul starts revealing itself, in that light, in that prakash, a lot of knowledge unfolds in your brain, and things like suffering and pain and all is dissolved. सब कुछ डिसॉल्व हो जाता है. तो ध्यान एक अपने में बहुत अच्छी दवाई है.
Correct.
ध्यान अपने में बहुत एक अच्छी दवाई है.
Correct. So Ma, to end this wonderful talk,
Yes.
I want you to share with people that how do you make your life meaningful and purposeful?
Yeah.
That can be shared also.
Yes, it's a very, very important thing to make your life meaningful and purposeful. देखिए, when you go through events of your life, especially sad events of your life, then you kind of lose the joy, exuberance, and happiness. Like you have lost a very precious someone in your very close to you, or you've lost it all in your business. You failed, or you've lost your job, or you lost loss of something. So it becomes something very sad in your life. You know, what one needs to first of all understand is that to make your life purposeful, you have to know what is your purpose. You have to find out what is your purpose. So purpose, बहुत लोग बोलते हैं कि मेरा पर्पस क्या है, कि मैं सेवा के लिए पैदा हुआ हूँ या स्पिरिचुअल परसूट के लिए हुआ हूँ कि मैं मटेरियल गोल के लिए हूँ. So ये जो पर्पस होता है ये दो पहलू का होता है. It's a two-sided coin. One is an external purpose and one is an internal purpose. As we say for dharma, there is an external purpose, there is external dharma, and there is an internal dharma. Your external purpose has to be intelligently sorted out. Your external purpose has to be intelligently sorted out. That will give you fruition and completion in all the aspects of your life. माने आपके नेचर में जो इनर क्रेविंग्स हैं, आपके नेचर में स्वाभाविकता से आपके अंदर जो क्रेविंग्स हैं, जैसे की क्रेविंग है समृद्धि की, कीर्ति की, हाँ, जो भी अभिलाषाएं, इन अभिलाषाओं को के साथ लाइन अप होना चाहिए आपका एक्सटर्नल पर्पस. वरना आप कर कुछ रहे हैं और आप चाह कुछ रहे हैं. ठीक है. ट्रू. तो There should not be, महात्मा गांधी जी ने क्या किया वो मैं अपना पर्पस बना लूं क्या, या सुभाष चंद्र बोस जी ने क्या किया वो मैं अपना पर्पस बना लूं क्या. उन्होंने अपने स्वभाव के हिसाब से अपना पर्पस बनाया. करेक्ट. आपको अपने पर्पस के हिसाब से, अपने नेचुरल लक्षणों के हिसाब से, अपनी वासनाओं के हिसाब से, और एक आइडियलिस्टिक प्लेटफॉर्म को ले, आइडियल्स लेते हैं हम पुराने जमाने से. इंडियन कल्चर हैज ऑलवेज सेड कि उनकी फोटोज लगाओ जिनकी तरह आप बनना चाहते हो. वो वाकई में काम करता है कि you want to be a blend of this one. मतलब some things of the Mahatma Gandhi you like, some things of Subhash Chandra Bose you like, some things of Indira Gandhi you like. Okay, you mix them, that is the person. So that this exercise is not to eulogize them. This exercise is to make you familiar with what you want in your life. You want
Very
the prosperity of Ratan Tata, and you want the glory of say somebody. आप ये चीजों को अपने दिमाग में एसिमुलेट करिए और उस हिसाब से अपना एक्सटर्नल पर्पस ढूंढिए, ठीक है। अब आगे बात इंटरनल पर्पस की। इंटरनल पर्पस सिवाय जॉय और हैप्पीनेस को एक्सपीरियंस करना, इसके सिवा और कोई भी नहीं होता है इंटरनल पर्पस। There is no internal other purpose, and all your external purpose fulfillment go towards attaining the internal purpose.
true.
When you say you want to be prosperous, when you say you want to be famous, when you say you want to do so much of this work, काहे के लिए करना है? आप पूछें अपने आप से, ये क्यों करना चाहता हूँ? इसी से मुझे खुशी मिलेगी, इसी से मुझे शांति मिलेगी, इसी से मुझे सुख मिलेगा। आपका जवाब ये एक ही होगा। और किसी का भी संसार में कोई ये नहीं कहता कि मैं सब इसलिए काम करना चाहता हूँ क्योंकि ह्यूमैनिटी सुधर जाएगी। कोई असल में ह्यूमैनिटी के लिए काम नहीं करना चाहता है, सब अपने सुख के लिए ही काम करना चाहते हैं।
Yes.
जितने भी संस्थाएं देखेंगे, सब कुछ देखेंगे, आप बैठिए उनके साथ बात करके देखिए, भाई तुम इतने गरीबों की सेवा क्यों कर रहे हो? भाई मुझे सुख मिलता है इससे। ये नहीं बोलेगा वो कि उन्हें सुख मिलता है, उनके सुख से तुम्हारा क्या लेना देना, उनके सुख से मुझे सुख मिलता है। So ultimately it is the inner purpose is only experiencing joy and happiness, and for that the external purpose becomes kind of instrumental, because when people are involved in a purpose which is not close to their heart, they don't experience joy out of it, and that is spoiling both the inner and the outer purpose.
Wonderful, Ma. So it is fair to say that every person's journey is unique and personal.
100%.
And every person is here for their own happiness.
100%.
और जो एक्सटर्नल चीजें हैं हमारे आसपास, वो हमें अपने इनर जॉय के लिए आप किस तरह से उसके साथ जुड़ते हैं, how you get connected to those external things that are there, and how you can create happiness within you. आपको खुशी मिलेगी तो आप डेफिनेटली दूसरों को खुशी देंगे, and that connectivity obviously is going to be maintained. So the key is, what is it that's giving me happiness? Experience it and give it back to others.
And find out all the triggers that lead you to that happiness. Find the triggers. Correct. And positively, I mean, there are people who have a lot of negative traits to experience happiness. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about all the constructive lines of
yes,
this
of
world.
course. Of course, yes, absolutely. Wonderful. I would like to end with a shloka on happiness. Because मैं आपको ऐसे तो नहीं जाने दे सकती. You have to say something beautiful from the scriptures, which I know you love so much, and आप बोलते भी इतना beautiful है. So why don't you end with something that people can take with them?
Atiguru Shankaracharya, it's one of my favorite, stotras that he has written. He has written a lot of granth, all of you know that. प्रकरण ग्रंथ जितने हैं बड़े स्पिरिचुअल हैं उनके. One of them is Dhanyashtakam. Dhanyashtakam talks about it's a long stanza. Ashtakam means there are 8 stanzas that talk about who are the people who are blessed. He gives explanation of who is a joyous and a blessed person. These 8 stanzas. So 8 तो नहीं सुनाऊंगी, बहुत लंबा है वो, सिर्फ पहला वाला सुनाती हूँ, and that should be enough. Please. तद्ज्ञानं प्रशमकरं यदिन्द्रियाणां तद्ज्ञेयं यदुपनिषत्सु निश्चितार्थम् ते धन्या भुवि परमार्थनिश्चितेः शेषास्तु भ्रमनिलये परिभ्रमन्ताः आदौ विदित्य विषयान् मदमोहरागात् द्वेषादिशत्रुगणमारितयोगराजाः ज्ञात्वामृतं समनभूय परात्मविद्या Anta sukham bata gruhe vicharanti dhanya. He says in this stanza that Tadjnanam prashamakaram yadindriyanam. Only that is called knowledge that will silence your senses. उसी को नॉलेज कहते हैं जो सेंसेस को साइलेंट करता है और आपको अंदर की अनुभूति देता है, वही नॉलेज होता है. तज्ञानम प्रशमकरम यदिन्द्रियाणाम तज्ञेयम यदुपनिषत्सु निश्चितार्थम. Only and such a knowledge is found only in the scriptures. You will not find that knowledge scattered here and there. It's found in the scriptures. Te dhanya bhuvi parmartha nishchita. Blessed is such a person who thinks about the good for all. परमार्थ के बारे में जो सोचता है, the good for all. He is a blessed person. शेषास्तु भ्रमण निलय परिभ्रमणता. Everybody else is wasting their time and परिभ्रमणता गोल 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 घूम रहे हैं. So आदि गुरु शंकराचार्य said that पढ़ाई करो और अपने अस्तित्व को भीतर अनुभव करो. पढ़ो, read the scriptures and realize the self within. And if you really want to do something in the world, do things which are good for everyone, and then you are really a blessed person.
Thank you, Ma. It was an enlightening discussion, and I'm sure everybody जिन्होंने भी आपको सुना होगा उनको आपसे ज्ञान तो मिला ही है, but a deep sense of wisdom to connect to oneself. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Absolute honor to be with you. Pranam.
Thank you.
असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.